My 11 circles, bowl first. And today we're going to talk about how did Kolkata lose that game. In fact, we might be here for a while if we go through them all. But I've just put down a couple of notes to explain it a little bit better. So, you know, if you're talking to your uncle and he says something silly, you can go, no, I know the answer. The answer was on YouTube. And let's be honest, all the answers are on YouTube unless you're looking for stuff about QAnon. Let's start with Jasprit Bumrah and Trent Bolt. Actually, let's just start with Jasprit Bumrah. I mean, he affects games of cricket in the way that Sunil Narayan once did, Lasith Malinga once did, Rashid Khan I suppose does as well. His balls count for more than 24 balls because you know that no matter what you do in the other parts of the innings, you have to structure around the fact that you're going to go up against one of the best death bowlers in the world at the end. I'm not sure Kolkata did that tonight, but that's a whole different thing. When he came on for the 17th over, they needed 30 from 24. He had a free hit in that over, otherwise he wouldn't have gone for any runs. His last 2 overs wouldn't have gone for any runs. He bowled absolutely brilliantly. 4 runs off the second last over, and you know, that was pretty much the ball game there. And that's the problem with how Kolkata played. You can't actually allow the differential to get away from a runner ball. At a runner ball, you can probably still beat a Bumrah team. Once it gets to over a runner ball, he makes everything a lot trickier, especially on a wicket like that, where it's hard to get away anyway. Trent Bolt actually finished up with the easier over. Now, there are no easy death overs. Well, there are very few easy death overs. Trent Bolt is just an interesting player. Now, obviously, he came to Mumbai, where he's found his best form in this league. But you wonder how much of it is sort of Bumrah related or Bumrah adjacent. You know, essentially, he was never been a very good death bowler before. Suddenly, he's got the best death bowler at the other end helping him out. And he's really good again. It may just be a coincidence, or it may be the Bumrah bump for Bolt. Owen Morgan talked about the pitch afterwards, saying that this is not a good pitch for death batting. And I tell you what, I looked up the numbers, and guess what? This is not a good pitch for death batting. Once this steam goes out of this ball, it is hard to score boundaries. But I can only imagine that Kolkata would have known this in. They planned immaculately for this game. There's no way they didn't know that the steam had fallen out of this ball 3 out of the 4 innings that had been played so far. Plus, they actually saw the same thing happen to Mumbai, didn't they? They knew exactly that it was hard to score at the end, and they did not get far enough in front of the rate to make that work for them. The only person who has managed to make a lot of runs at the death on this wicket in this series is AB de Villiers. You know, that tells you how tough it is, because he ain't human. It's made all the worse when you compare it to Mumbai, where there's just been happy slappy going on everywhere. We're going to talk about Nitish Rana here, but firstly, we are going to explain T20 cricket in a nutshell. There are very few sports where you get the exact same amount of possessions or opportunities as the opposition. This is one of those sports. T20 is specifically one of those sports, right? You have to be efficient with how you use it. Nitish Rana has gone on to be the top scorer in this match. Well, that's good. In normal cricket parlance, we're just like, okay, he's done well. This is an efficiency sport. It is about how you use those balls. The easiest time to score in this game was early on with the harder ball. That was shown all the way through the game. Nitish Rana faced a lot of that early ball and he did not kick on. We generally look at the end and we'll talk about Bumrah and Bolt and Krunal Pandya and all these sorts of people and the fact that Andre Russell and Dinesh Karthik couldn't get the ball away. Rana faced almost 40% of the balls and did not actually ever kick on a pitch where the set batter was always at a massive advantage over anyone new coming out. That's a problem. That's not to say that it was all his fault. That has to be something to do with the tactics, perhaps, or whatever. But they should have been massively ahead of the rate, and they never really got massively ahead of the rate. When you're working as an analyst for cricket teams, one thing that you tell teams a lot is it's better to chase the total as if it's an 18 over score than it's a 20 over score. And the reason is that things go wrong. If you leave it down to the last couple of overs, quite often you're going to lose games that you shouldn't lose. This is a game that they shouldn't have lost. They should have crushed this. By the 15th over mark, which is when Rana went out, they should have been massively ahead of the game. But because one batter was behind, and he actually batted behind the rate that they needed pretty much all the way through his innings, they never quite got in front of the game. When the steam came out of that ball, the rest of them just couldn't pick up the slack either. And then there was Bumrah. This is a team tactical problem from Kolkata. Rana is just one of the symptoms here. Everyone's going to focus on the end, but realistically, I just think they batted too slow at the beginning of their innings. They should have been so far ahead of this game, it should never have even got this close. There should never have been a Bumrah moment. There were 6 players who made double figures in this game. It was a tough pitch to bat on. You don't want to focus too much on Rana because of that. But he also had the second slowest strike rate despite the fact he faced the most balls. There was a problem there. I'm going to point out what a brilliant game this was for Krunal Pandya, even though he dropped the catch that could have completely iced the game, probably even earlier on, getting rid of Andre Russell. But what a phenomenal game. Firstly, no one could make runs in the death in this game except for him. He made 15 off 9. That's pretty much the difference between the two teams when you really factor everything down at the end. He entered the 16th over with Kolkata a chance of winning that game 3 out of 5 times, 4 out of 5 times. And by the end, it was basically a 50-50 game if you look at the win predictors out there. He completely changed the whole setup. And yes, Bumrah was involved because of his impact. And Trent Bolt still bowled a great last over. But Krunal Pandya, what a game. He remains my favourite Pandya brother. Let's talk for a moment about Rahul Chahar. Incredible that Mumbai actually got their selection so massively wrong for this game that he had to essentially fill the role of 2 spinners here. And if you're wondering how I know they got their selection wrong, they bowled Rohit Sharma. That's how I know that they got their selection wrong here. Essentially, they had plenty of spinners in their squad available to them that they could have brought in. Marco Janssen did not need to play. He only bowled 2 overs in the end. They easily could have used one of these spinners. And instead, Chahar had to basically play, 2 different roles in this team? He had to take 4 wickets, which is essentially what you would expect from 2 spinners combined on a helpful condition. That's how well he bowled. He overcame a very average start and really fought back. But it was obviously the pitch favoured him, but the pitch would have also favoured another spinner. He got out the top 4 batters. Think about that for a moment. 2 of them made double figures, and obviously the rest didn't. But basically, getting out the top 4, that's an incredible effort. Forget Andre Russell's junk wickets at the end. You want to take the head off the batting lineup, and that's exactly what he did. So we've talked about a lot of things here, haven't we? We've really gone through the details, but if you really want to know why Mumbai beat Kolkata, it's because Mumbai always beat Kolkata. That is what they do. This is the thing now. Kolkata lose 78.5% of their matches to Mumbai. Now, take a big breath. Let's think about this for a minute. This is, if you win 66% of your T20 games in a season, you are top-class cricketer. That's in one season. When you can kind of control a few of the different things, your lineup's going to be the same. The opposition is going to change massively. You're going to understand things. Now, 78.5% over the lifetime of this tournament, even though it's only a small tournament, is a ridiculous number. This tournament has been played in the UAE a couple of times, South Africa, and India. It's now being played in a bubble within India on certain pitches. Mumbai started this league terribly. They were the laughingstock of this league. Kolkata won 2 championships on the back of Sunil Narine, right? All of these things happened, and at the same time, Mumbai kept beating Kolkata. Here's one for you. Mumbai beat Kolkata in an era when they had Aiden Blizzard playing for them. Do you know who Aiden Blizzard is? Of course you don't know who Aiden Blizzard is. No one knows who Aiden Blizzard is. I mean, I know who you are, Aiden. You know I was always a big fan. But my point is that you probably don't know who he is. He barely played, right? That was like a million years ago. That was almost a different form of T20 cricket back then. So much has changed, except the one constant that has never changed, which is that Mumbai always beat Kolkata. And let's think about this specific game today. Kolkata got their tactics perfect to begin the game. All those spinners absolutely nailed it. Pat Cummins, all his top balls bowled brilliantly. Andre Russell, who expected him to take wickets, let alone a 5-wicket haul? No one ever takes 5-wicket hauls against Mumbai, except for the fact it's now happened 2 games in a row. No one ever takes 5 wickets against Mumbai. They completely destroyed Mumbai's middle order, which usually itself destroys the death. Both of Kolkata's openers got into double figures and got really set and batted well into the innings. Oh, and Mumbai had to use Rohit Sharma's bowling. Not just Rohit Sharma's bowling. A hobbled Rohit Sharma's bowling. They got their selection so bad, and yet it doesn't matter, because when Kolkata play Mumbai, Kolkata lose. Forget everything I've said previously in this video. It means nothing. When Kolkata play Mumbai, they lose. And just for you fantasy nuffins who are on my 11th circle and are playing your game and want a little bit more, Krunal Pandya on this pitch could be very good going forward. It didn't look like he had incredible bowling mojo coming into this, did it? It didn't look like he was feeling it so much against England, but right at the moment he looks good. That said, As I said for the first game, and it didn't actually work for me in the first game, but as I said in the first game, Chennai and spinners. I mean, they brought Harbhajan back. Do you know what I mean? I mean, that tells you kind of everything you need to know. This is a pitch that people are going to try and spin a lot. Remember, Kolkata used about, the first 5 overs were all spin. I don't know why some of us doubted this pitch was going to spin after the first game. And I'm looking at you directly, camera on top of my computer. But essentially, this pitch is spinning and it's getting more spinny. It's getting as spinny as it was when the Chennai team used to make it spinny. And on the whole spinning pitch, it's worth mentioning that Sky is not even a good player of spin, is he? It's not even like his thing. He never made any runs when he played at Kolkata for Kolkata. And yet he made runs on this wicket. So that means he must be seeing the ball incredibly well at the moment. And I think we kind of knew that after he played England, but it feels like it's on another level at the moment. I think Sky is a very good one to pop into your fantasy team. I don't know why it means pop, but it does. I know Trent Bolt hasn't taken a lot of wickets so far, but has anyone in this competition swung the ball as much as him? If he keeps swinging the ball like this, there's going to be a couple of wickets come his way, a 2 or a 3 wicket haul in the next couple of games. He just seems to be swinging the ball more than anyone else in this tournament. All joking about Kolkata's disastrous loss aside, really hoping Ben Stokes isn't as injured as we think he is and he can play at the rest of this tournament, or at the very least, it doesn't affect his career over the next little while. But either way, we will be here tomorrow to tell you about Ben Stokes' hands and other appendages of other players. But remember, go play My 11 Circle. Fantasy cricket. Go do your fantasy. Get your fantasy on.